what are some strategies you guys have seen work where we're trying to basically create customer success plans?
You have to know your customers better than they know themselves, and I think you probably have a lot of understanding about the customers. You probably need to take a step back away from anything that you've been doing from an operations standpoint and go back to the basics of like, what is the customer's desired outcome? So what is their required outcome and what is their appropriate experience? And that has nothing to do with what we've been delivering. And I think that's the hardest thing when you're, we're doing what we've been doing and we're doing it because we've been doing it. You really do need to be able to kind of separate yourself from that and say, I don't really care about sunk costs. I don't really care about what we've been doing. What does the customer actually need from us? And there's a whole process discovering the desired outcome, and it's a discovery process. It's not a process where I go in and say, this is your appropriate experience. But it's, and on 16ventures.com, which is my website, there's several different things I've posted about what that discovery process is. It's not proprietary or anything like that. It's just kind of putting on your detective hat and going out and figuring out really what experience is appropriate. I say appropriate because it's the appropriate word. What do we need to deliver to the customer so they can say, yes, this was an appropriate experience? It means understanding what their goals are. It means understanding what use cases would be valuable to them or whatever. Just take a step back and figure that out. And then you need to map out what does it take for them to actually achieve that? What do they need to do? What do we need to do? It's so funny. So you've been doing this for a couple of years. I work with companies all the time that have been doing customer success for a few years. They have never mapped out what is required to happen in order to achieve their customer's desired outcome. They don't know what it takes on their side. They don't know what it takes on the customer side. Most of the time, what happens on the customer side is a complete black box. They have no idea. Or at least they've never mapped it out, right? They don't know what success potential is for their customers. They get mad at sales for closing bad for customers, but they've never defined that. So how can you get mad at sales for closing bad for customers when you don't even know what you've never agreed on, or you've never done the work to figure out what a bad for customer is? So do all this sort of stuff that you might think you know, but if you've never like really laid it out there and all agreed on it, then it's going to be very difficult to operationalize around that. So it's just basically taking a step back and kind of getting back to basics. But don't let the fact that you've been doing this kind of get in the way of what you need to do. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that I run into is just like inertia or momentum or whatever the scientific thing about moving forward is. We can't let that drive stuff. We kind of need to be able to take that back. And I joke about this, but it's kind of true. Like, I think, and maybe you'll agree, or maybe you actually bring real value. You'll bring real value to your clients. A lot of the value that I bring is just being an outside set of eyes. Because I can come in and say, wait, why are you doing it that way? And you're like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that I'm not in there, right, all the time. So that's my suggestion, is go back to basics.
I can share a little bit what we do to do that discovery. I think he hit it on exactly the moment. Sometimes people call me and they say, hey, we're going to set up the customer success program. Do you have some best practices you could dump in on us and we can in 2 weeks discover the customer success program? It's kind of silly because you always want to do that. The discovery that you're going to do as a preliminary step is so important to make sure you create something that actually produces results. And so we recommend there's a few approaches you can take. Some of the things that we did with customers are, doing internal interviews with different stakeholders that constantly work with customers, doing a survey with customers, interview customers that have different experiences, churned, at risk, hugely successful, done upsells, constantly, whatever it is that you're trying to solve for. Find out those who reach that point and then those that are on the other spectrum so that you can understand the differences, and then analyze the data and see what is actually happening. When you do that, you're going to get a lot of aha moments and a blueprint to not only where are the opportunities for delighting your customers, where are the pain points that you need to fix, and how do those align throughout the customer journey. And as customer success management team, you may want to focus from the moment your customer is interacting with sales, because Lincoln said, if the expectation setting is off right from the beginning, then they're setting you up for failing versus setting you up for success. So there's a lot of opportunities to set the customer for success by having the sales team speak about certain things in a certain way. I want to also say that for very mature companies that embracing customer success, there is a few more challenges or change management perspectives you may want to consider. You know, when you think about changing something in the organization, you really think about, oh, you know, what's going to happen. So what we've noticed consistently, if you're introducing a new program, a new role, new playbooks, new systems, it's not only internal change that you need to get your people used to, like your CSMs might reject the change. They might want to do things their way, so that's sometimes hard. But also your customers might say, no, I'm used to you configuring my system all day long, or no, that person, I'm not, you know, I just want him to handle my escalations. And so if you're saying, no, now you're going to talk about value, we're going to do your success plan, the customers might reject the idea or not give you access to the right people so that you can have an effective process. And then other executives might see you as a threat. So sometimes you come up with the best playbooks and your sales or, you know, there's one might say, hey, you're playing and I should own renewals, I should own expansion, or marketing would say, I should own advocacy. Like there could be a lot of misalignments even internally that you would need to deal with. So we actually looked at, you know, what would it take to have a successful adoption of new playbooks when you introduce it to a mature company. You're taking an existing team that's used to be doing certain things, and now you're telling them, no, you're going to be customer success. You need to think about different things, and the biggest thing is that what's in it for me, obviously, but also having them own part of the process of creating the new playbooks. And so we talked about that. Those are just different things. And overall, this is what Lincoln kept talking about. You want to start from understanding your existing customers, what do they need? Then you want to define the goals based on the opportunities and the pains that you discover during the discovery, and then design the playbooks and the templates based on the goals you want to hit this year or in this quarter or whatnot. When you run your playbooks, you want to run them on a cohort of clients. Think about it like A/B testing that they do in marketing. Run it on 5 accounts, see what happens, or a specific region, see what happens. Get the stories back, monitor the impact. Did that have a positive impact on my customers, on my CSM internally? If so, can I prove the value internally and externally? Look, if some of the CSMs have applied this and they had success, now it's easier for the other CSMs to trust it. It's also easier for the other customers to trust it. And if not, then do we have opportunity to adjust them? Once you adjust and you run through this and you're comfortable with a playbook and you've achieved adoption, you want to scale it by systemizing it, templatizing everything that you need to make sure that the experience is consistent. But you want to kind of follow this methodology that we at CSM Practice developed so that you can have a successful adoption of playbooks by everyone in the company. You know, you can see all this content, like how to handle customers resistant to change. We also address the cross-functional collaboration. So if this is a topic that's interesting for you, we actually wrote an ebook about this. You could just download it and read through that a little bit more. So you can text CSM launch to 44222, this number. But in general, if you can take one takeaway is that framework and having a mindset that it's not just going to be your CSMs that might resist to it. You really have to think through change management across all 3 aspects.